The Florida Gators. What do we say here? Saturday afternoon in what was a hyped up matchup as much as a matchup between two unranked teams can be. You had Texas A&M coming into the swamp, packed house. Let's give it to Gator fans. They show up. They showed up for this game despite what happened in the opener against rival Miami and despite what has been happening at Florida in terms of the football program over the last couple of years. Fans piled in there. Now, they did have to withstand a weather delay and then rain after the weather delay. And, the stands weren't as full when the action got back going. But what were they treated to? They were treated to another beatdown in the swamp at the hands of the Texas A&M Aggies, who are, again, an unranked football team who got beat at home by Notre Dame and also a fellow SEC rival, if we could say that. The final score was 33-20, but certainly not indicative of how this game went. Texas A&M dominated this football game from the word go. First drive, straight down the football field with their backup quarterback. Now, I'm doing the air quotes on that. If you ask me, Marcel Reed should be the starter for this football team, but that's neither here nor there. Whoever was at quarterback, at the end of the day, we have some ugly stats for you. 310 yards rushing for Texas A&M. And this is indicative of what we have seen with the 2024 version of the Florida Gators. Defense is about an attitude, man. That's just really what it's about. People could go on and on about a scheme, whether they should be running 3-4 or 4-3 or two high safeties, whatever the case may be. You could go on and on about that. But at the end of the day, no matter what scheme you're running, it is about an attitude when you are playing defense. And right now, Florida doesn't have much of that. There isn't enough anger. There isn't enough intensity. There isn't enough just a willingness to defend the turf on that side of the ball. And we can go on and on about what the reasons for that may be. Don't have the right players, not getting the right coaching, the culture's wrong, whatever the case may be. But it started there. Texas A&M, who struggled mightily in their game against Notre Dame to just get anything going offensively. You saw it, we saw it, everyone saw it in that game because a lot of people watched that Notre Dame-Texas A&M matchup in week 1. And this was on their home turf. They come to the swamp and march right down the field and pretty much had their way for most of the day. Again, 310 yards rushing, and Marcel Reed was 11 of 17, 178 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And they just converted third downs. They just kind of did what they wanted to do out there. Even after the weather delay, they came right out and kept it on moving straight down the field. So we have that issue there. And if you're not playing defense, it's going to affect your offense. I don't care who you are. At some point, when you face good opponents, it's going to affect your offense. For all of you fans out there, you Florida Gator hopefuls, it's another story that we've seen time and again. Forget about the coach stuff. We're going to get to that in a minute. It is, you don't have the right quarterback in there. Change the quarterback. Get DJ Lagway in there. He's ready to go. Kid is wet behind the ears, folks. He is not ready. I saw this with Anthony Richardson. Guys wanted Emory Jones out there. They wanted Emory Jones out of there. You wanted Anthony Richardson in there because you saw him throw a football and flick his wrist and the ball went 60, 70 yards. Or you saw him take off and run with ease, 230-pound young man. You fell in love with all of the athleticism, and you fail to realize there's a certain amount of development that needs to happen with this player before he can harness all of that athletic ability and turn it into something that's going to move an offense consistently and give the team wins. But forget that. Florida fans didn't want to hear that. They saw the arm, they saw the legs, put him in there now. Ditto again now with DJ Lagway, okay? You see the same athleticism, you see the arm strength, you think that's ready to go right now. He has the athleticism. Everything else, be damned. It's almost like I feel like your fans think we could just throw all these players out here. They don't need any practice. They don't need any coaching. Forget about that stuff. It doesn't matter if a guy's strong and he's fast, put him on the field. Magically, things will happen and the wins will come. Well, DJ Lagway, 6 of 13 for 54 yards, 1 TD, 2 interceptions. This was not Samford on that football team, folks. You guys judged him off of his abilities against Samford, which is, this is not a real football team in the sense of what Florida is playing. the conference that Florida is in, I saw DJ Lagway in the game against Miami. Now, granted, first football game, but against a real opponent, and it was not that impressive. So I'm not shocked that he did not perform well against Texas A&M because the pressure from the fan base pushed him out there just like you pushed Anthony Richardson out on that field. And this has been an ongoing story since Urban Meyer walked out of the door. Think about it, Florida fans. How many quarterback controversies have you had since 15 left? Since Tim Tebow left the University of Florida, think about all of the quarterback controversies. Brissett and Driscoll. Remember that one? Y'all remember that one? Trask and Felipe Franks. You had Tyler Murphy in there one year. Then, inexplicably, because you guys didn't like the way Kyle Trask moved around in that LSU game, the Joe Burrow LSU guys, some of y'all were talking about Emory Jones should be in there. Then when Emory Jones got in there, what? You guys wanted Anthony Richardson in there. And now we're on to this. By the way, Graham Mertz, the guy that you guys wanted out of there in this game, 12 of 15, 195 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Not going to blow you away, but significantly better than his backup, DJ Lagway. And there were pundits out there that wanted, and one of them was Aaron Rodgers' little brother, who was talking about get Lagway in there now. No, he's not ready. He's not ready. The last thing you need is this guy going in there and having his mind ruined, basically, not having his head together. That stuff goes on into the future years. That's what we saw with Anthony Richardson, never really able to harness and pull all that stuff together in terms of athletic ability to formulate something that you can be consistent with and win you ball games. If you ask me right now, Anthony Richardson has looked far better in the limited amount of games he's played in the NFL than he had ever looked as a Florida Gator. And why? Because he was forced onto that field because of fan pressure far before he should have been. So here we are again. We've got a quarterback controversy, and now, once again, a coach is going to get fired at Florida. And there's no way Billy's going to make it through all of this. And I'm sure that brings joy to a lot of Florida fans. They just think, I've seen him described as a disgrace to the program. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that about Billy. You guys hired him. That's who you wanted. You wanted Mullen out the door like you wanted Mack out the door, like you wanted Muschamp out the door, and around we go. And Billy's in here. And when Billy was coming in, you guys supported it. For the record, I will say this. Of all the hires that I've seen in this little transitional era for the Florida Gators, this is probably the time where I've saw the most dissent, if I could use that word. Most people saying, oh, I am not sure about this guy. And before he even came in, you guys called him Sunbelt Billy. But there were plenty of people who supported it. You just wanted Mullen gone. So here's what I've noticed. Urban Meyer was elite at picking jobs. And Urban Meyer had really climbed the ladder and earned his way into that Florida job. Started off at Bowling Green. He did his thing at Bowling Green. He won games. Did he make some mistakes there? Yes. And that's what you're supposed to do at these places. Excuse me. Then he takes another step up to Utah. Does his thing there. Builds it to a nationally recognized program. Makes his mistakes there. And now he's ready to become coach of the Florida Gators. Since then, though, here's what you guys have done. Whatever the case may be, though you enjoyed the Urban Meyer years and the 2 championships and just being the top of college football and the talk of college football, you didn't like what came with it. You didn't like the Aaron Hernandez and all the other stuff. You guys have seen it. You know the story. I don't need to rehash that stuff now. You didn't like what came with it. You weren't down for that. So, and I'm not talking about the fans. I'm going to figure that this was the university in the city of Gainesville itself. Did not like the reputation that came along with that. So you had this grand idea. Can we have that kind of success without the off-the-field problems? Okay. So you hire a guy without coaching experience, head coaching experience, in Will Muschamp. What does he do? He comes in, he takes the talents that's there, goes 7-6. That might have troubled you a little bit, but I got news for you. The thing was on a slide on its way down with Urban Meyer, all right? It had peaked and it was starting to go down. You guys might romanticize the Urban Meyer era and think that he walked out the door a champion at its peak. No, it was sliding the other way. And you know who saw that? Urban. Urban saw that, slid out the door, and got out of there with his reputation in terms of a winning coach intact. But Will Muschamp came in there 7-6 season. Then the following year goes 11-2. And look, for all intents and purposes, could have really won that Georgia game. It could have gone either way. A controversial call there, and he could have gone through the regular season undefeated. Without as much of the off-the-field nonsense that you got in the Urban Meyer, I don't think anything could compete with that, to be honest. So, fans, you got your wish. What happens next is crazy. We don't have the quarterback play. It's not necessarily what it needed to be. You had a quarterback controversy. Jeff Driscoll didn't play like he did the year before. Whatever the case may be, 4-8 season. Now the alarm bells go off. To his credit, Will Muschamp came back the next year, restored things, got back in the win column. But at this point, you guys started thinking, oh, we're just too far away from the Urban Meyer era. Instead of thinking that era is gone, that time has passed. It was sliding in the opposite direction, and having patience with a guy like Will Muschamp, because for whatever was going on there, this team, this program was playing defense. Guys wanted to come there, and he could have continued sliding in top-tier talent on defense. Were there offensive problems? No doubt. Did you have problems at quarterback? No doubt. But you're talking about a first-time head coach, and rather than pouring into supporting that guy and continuing to work to getting the best offensive coordinator you could get in there and continuing to support him and get him into a situation where he could bring in top-tier talent, enough of a quarterback that can do enough with what was happening on the defensive side to get you back to the top of college football. No, you guys, you fired him. You let Will Muschamp walk out the door, and I'm going to tell you that's where your problems started. Then you moved on to Jim McElwain, a guy who had only had 3 years head coaching experience at Colorado State. This was not Urban Meyer, who went to Bowling Green, then stepped up to Utah, then came to Florida. It's not that guy. And I've got no problem personally with Jim McElwain. He coached both of my sons. I've got no problem with him. What I do have a problem with is Florida fans wanting Muschamp out, bringing Mac in, and thinking, I don't know what you thought. The guy had 3 years of head coaching experience. But, he did coach at Alabama, so we got to have that guy. Anyone coming out of Alabama, let's just grab that. We can't get Nick Saban. Let's get Nick Saban diet soda. So you bring McElwain in. What does he do? Comes in, 10 wins first season. Then he goes down to 9 wins, and you start buzzing. You start making noise. Everything was a problem. And also having quarterback controversy, and you get stomped by Alabama, and you start to panic, as a lot of teams in the SEC did during the Nick Saban era. Rather than realizing the Nick Saban era is not going to last forever and positioning yourself well enough so that when the Nick Saban era does end, we've got a well-oiled machine and we could step in and take over like Georgia did, right? Georgia did that. They didn't get all crazy and fire their coach because he couldn't win the SEC. They kept Mark Richt in there, winning 9, 10 games, and some years goes back down to 9. They didn't panic. They kept him in there. Guess who slid right in there? Guess who looked attractive when Kirby Smart decided he wanted to now become a head coach? Georgia looked attractive because they had patience with their head coach, and their fan base was not rabid. So he goes to Georgia, doesn't come to Florida. And the Florida job, from what I remember, was not open at the time. But it's what I'm getting to is attracting quality candidates because your program looks stable and you do right by the coaches. Once again, Florida, you're finding yourself in that situation. So you move on from Mac. After a 9-4 season, you walk this guy out the door. He's 3-4 the year after that. Whatever, there might have been a blowout loss, but to be frank about it, going into that Georgia game, he'd already had it. He'd already figured he was, out the door. So of course they go out there and get blown out in epic proportions. So 3-4. Now you bring in Dan Mullen. And of those 3 guys, Dan Mullen did the best there. You know why? Dan Mullen had 9 years of head coaching experience at an SEC school, Mississippi State. 9 years experience. So, of course, he does the best. He comes in, wins 10 games, takes you to a New Year's Six bowl game, then comes in, wins 11, New Year's Six bowl game. But no, that's not enough winning. You didn't beat the Joe Burrow team, who people want to compare to the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. That wasn't enough. So you start nitpicking him for everything. You even tried to start a quarterback controversy with his Heisman Trophy guy. The guy became a Heisman Trophy candidate the next year. You guys started a little bit of a, controversy there. And then your fan base started nitpicking him. Then you were going on and on about his recruiting, and you just didn't let the guy operate. I'm here to tell you, I know Dan Mullen just threw his hands up and said, man, to hell with this. I come in here, we go 10-3, then we go 11-2, and you are nitpicking me? You got a problem with me? And that's why you saw that precipitous fall off after that. You guys really expecting him to beat that Alabama team. You could drop all your little comments about a shoe and all that. I'm past all that. Forget all that crap. You got in the guy's way, just like you got in Mac's way, just like you got in Muschamp's way. You got in Mullen's way, and he just threw his hands up. Give me my buyout, take off. I can't even, that's something I really should have looked up here. How much money has Florida paid out to coaches that they've had to let go? Millions. And you're about to do it now with Billy, who's going to get $26 million if you guys send him out of the door right now. Think of how you could have spent that money. Think about roll that thing all the way back to Muschamp and think if you would have spent that kind of money instead of paying coaches salaries to not coach for you, if you would have just, spent that money in aiding Muschamp and however he needed to get it done. Hey everyone, are you tired of the hassle of finding last-minute tickets to your favorite events? Look no further than Game Time. The Game Time ticketing app is your go-to source for scoring amazing deals on last-minute tickets to sports, games, concerts, theater shows, and more. And with my exclusive discount code, TrueFan, you can get a discount on your first purchase. With Game Time's new Game Time Picks feature, you don't have to sort through thousands of tickets. You get only the best deals, and that's right up until the last minute. Their easy-to-use app shows a detailed view from the seat before you buy, so you know exactly what you're getting. No more having your view blocked. You don't want to sit in the sun. You get to see all of that before you make your purchase. And the best part, their all-in pricing shows you exactly what you're going to pay before you get out your credit card. There's no more waiting for that other shoe to drop at checkout. So whether you're a diehard sports fan, a music lover, or you're just looking for a fun night out with your girl, Game Time has you covered. Download the Game Time app today, and don't forget to use the promo code TrueFan for an exclusive discount on your first purchase. Don't miss out on the action. Get your tickets now with Game Time. Whether that was to pull in a hotshot offensive coordinator who required a high salary or building up the facilities, NIL wasn't a part of this thing yet. Think if you would have done that. And I bet now if I drop the poll, I think a majority of Florida fans would say they would bring Muschamp back. If Lane Kiffin, who's your new darling, we'll talk about that in a second, if Lane Kiffin, your new darling, was not available, you'd bring that Muschamp back. Some of y'all would even have enough stones to admit, firing Muschamp was a mistake. Should have kept it. Should have hung in there with Will Muschamp. First time head coach. God's sakes, the guy was born in Gainesville, Florida. Should have hung in there with that guy. Brand new head coach. There were going to be some bumps in the road. He was not going to be Urban Meyer right off the bat. And even still, he had an 11-2 season that could have easily have been 11-1 or 12-0. He was that close. And I'll be honest, some of the losses he had in the seasons after that were very close. You're right there. And if you had a quarterback, you would have won those games. I think a lot of you would have done that. So what do you do now? I don't know how attractive this Florida job looks to the rest of the coaches. I've heard out there that Lane Kiffin would jump at this job. Bless Florida for that. Because I don't know how many other guys can look at this situation and look at changing a coach every 2.8 years is attractive. That's not the stability that I want. If I'm a father and husband and I'm not interested in having a job for 3 years, or the moment things slide a little bit backwards, I'm going to be facing a problem. I'm going to be calling a realtor, and then I'm going to have all this stress. I don't know how many guys think that's a great gig. At this point now, it's Lane Kiffin or bust. How many Florida fans out there are willing to go back in history and think about some of the guys you just thought were going to be the answer. Remember when some of y'all wanted Chip Kelly? Remember that? Remember you guys that wanted Scott Frost? Two guys that aren't head coaches anymore. Remember that? So I don't know where you go from here. Quite frankly, if it was me, I'd let Billy Napier finish out the season. And yes, it's going to be ugly, but there isn't any interim coach you're going to bring in right now that's going to get you guys a victory past UCF. I think you've got the next 2 weeks to win games, hopefully, plural, Mississippi State and UCF. And then, that's it for you guys. The Florida State game at the end of the year is going to be a doozy. That's going to be fun. It is in Tallahassee. I don't know about you guys winning that. Yeah, I'm sure you're looking at Florida State struggling and looking at their quarterback situation and saying, I don't know how Florida State's going to win a game. But before you do that, take a look at what you guys look like on defensively. If there's anything DJ Ugalele needs, it would be Florida's defense. He could get right against that based on what I saw. Because frankly, that Texas A&M team that I saw play against Notre Dame had no business walking up and down the field in the swamp. But so they did. So with that in mind, there isn't anyone that's going to come in here and get you wins against Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, and Ole Miss. That's not happening. That's not happening. You're struggling with the easiest part of the schedule this year. You might as well let Billy Napier finish that thing out, and if it bottoms out, it bottoms out. If you're 2-10, so be it. If you're 3-9, so be it. If you end up being 1-11, so be it. You know what? The next guy comes in and he's cleaning up a mess, and maybe you guys will have some patience. I'm going to run this thing all the way back to Steve Spurrier, and you guys need to understand this. Prior to Steve Spurrier, the Florida Gators had not tasted a national championship, and they'd had some really bad, lean years. They'd had some awful years. And in came Steve Spurrier, a guy who had some coaching experience, head coach at Duke for 3 years. And you know what you guys had with Steve Spurrier? You had some patience. You were not coming off of national championships. You did not have this sense of entitlement. You didn't have any of that. So you guys were patient with Steve Spurrier when he didn't win a national championship right away. Yes, he came in and things improved right away, double-digit wins, but you guys have experienced that. Dan Mullen came in, double-digit wins. Jim McElwain came in, had a double-digit win season. Will Muschamp came in, double-digit win season. You guys that wasn't enough. You guys needed someone else. You didn't do that to Steve Spurrier. You accepted those double-digit win seasons that came without a national championship. You accepted some of those battles that he had with Bobby Bowden that didn't go his way, and you were patient, and it paid off. Eventually, you got that title with Steve Spurrier, and it turned your program completely into this something else that Urban Meyer could come in and build on and get 2 national championships out of it. So I'm here to tell you guys this. You can continue on your course, and I'm talking to you Florida fans. You can continue on this course that you're on now, where nothing is good enough. There's always a problem with the quarterback. We need another coach, or the next hire, because it's over for Billy. We know that. There's no way he's coming back from any of this. So whether you do it now or you do it at the end of the year, he's gone. That next coach that comes in has to work. I said this about my school, the University of Miami. Mario Cristobal has to work, or we're going to be dead as a program for a good long time. And by dead, meaning a fight to get above 500. I'm telling you this, Florida fans, from experience. If that next hire, and everyone feels strongly that it would be a Lane Kiffin, and it better be a guy with experience. There's no way you're bringing a guy into this situation in Florida right now that doesn't have legit head coaching, FBS, Power 4 experience. You need that. There's no more experiments. There's no more a guy was at a group of 5. There's no more giving it to a hot shot coordinator and throwing him into this mess. I don't think Dan Lanning could have walked into this Florida deal without head coaching experience and done anything. He might have had a really good first season, and then he'd fall off. You need a guy that can handle it. And that guy is going to be Lane Kiffin, who's quite frankly been fired from better places than this. A guy that can take the heat, understand he's already made his mistakes, and Lane Kiffin has done that. He'd be that guy. I can't think of who else falls into that category of what Florida needs. But nevertheless, whoever you bring in here, Florida fans, you better rock with it. You better rock with whatever is going on. If you didn't have a top 10 class, keep your mouth shut, support the guy, and let's see what happens next year. You're going to have to start accepting the fact that that championship that you guys won is over a decade ago. Over a decade, you're not that anymore. Miami fans had to do it. Florida State fans might still be a little delusional, but they're going to have to come around that way too. It's over a decade for you. Florida State, it's over a decade for you. Florida, it's been over a decade for Miami fans. And, at this point, we've accepted it, and now we seem to be in a really, really good situation to get back. The sooner Florida fans recognize this, the better off you'll be. The next hire has to work, so you better support it. There's no more, let's get this guy out of here. Let's find the next coach. Let's do the coaching search. Let's follow the private plane. You can't do that anymore. Keep your mouth shut about the quarterback situation. If it's Lane Kiffin, he knows what he's doing. He's figured it out, if that's who it ends up being. But whoever the hell it is, shut up about the quarterback. Shut up about firing the coach. And when you lose by 20 to 28 points against Georgia, shut your mouth. That guy has to work. That's my reaction to the entire Florida football program problem. But at the end of the day, man, Texas A&M came into Florida and dominated the Florida Gators on their turf, 33-20, and it wasn't even close. Just a reminder, guys, the Gridiron Stud Show coming up later on this week. That's going to air on Wednesday morning, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. The Two Chums Football Podcast, where Emil and I get together and talk about last week's games. I'll talk more about the games that were played last week, and we also give you predictions on the following week's game. That comes up Wednesday night, Thursday morning. And for you guys that are into defensive back play, the Indie Drills podcast will be up Thursday. So that's the schedule for this week. Feel free to comment down below, guys. Appreciate it. And subscribe to the channel, like, share, all that good stuff. All right, I'm out. Talk to you guys later.